He put out your fire, but he left the embers. The heart can't forget what it still remembers. And you've been a long way from home. I know you're lonely, but you won't be lonely long. Welcome to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. I am so happy that you're here. In this episode, we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart because just a year ago, this past week, I bought a home in Tennessee by myself. And I had already lived in Tennessee for months prior and had been doing this 3 months I was in Airbnbs for 3 months. So basically like 30 days, 1 full month of an Airbnb in different places around Nashville, Tennessee. And I really am feeling like what it was kind of like hunting for home, all while hunting for myself. So I think when I was thinking about finding a home base, it was really like finding a place to allow myself to become what I had felt that I wanted to be. And I feel like that's like relatable to a lot of people because so often in our lives, I think, have moments where we feel lost. And a lot of different things can trigger this loss. And when I use the word trigger, I don't mean it in any kind of like negative way. I think more just of a way that goes, oh, huh. Like that makes me feel like I don't know who I am. So whether that's like a large life event, whether it's like a death of a family or friend, ending a relationship, leaving a company, making new friends, or having to move for a job, or, there can be a number of things, right? A roommate leaves your life, a best friend moves away. I mean, there's so many things that really impact us to go, oh, gosh, is this who I am? Is this what I want? Does this feel like home? And I think as though, although that's a really scary thought, it's such kind of an exciting part of life because you don't know what's in store when you change things. And that's actually exciting. Although often our mind loves comfort and it will trick us into believing that it's scary, right? But it's really a mindset shift of this is exciting. This is all new. And I'm going to create so many new adventures and meet so many new people and hear so many new perspectives. And I'm here for it. So let's enter me finding home after hunting for it and not knowing. So I've told you a little bit about the 3 months that I came out to Nashville and I was in 3 different Airbnbs, and those stories are wild. But I was looking back because I did a lot of vlogging that I just shared. Well, I'll call it vlogging to sound fancy. It was saving Snapchats of me talking to either my close friends or just saving them for me. And it really was a reflection of like my thoughts in that moment in time, which is super helpful for me to now kind of see how much has changed and happened in a year. So there's one of me talking about, and that last Airbnb, okay, this is like in South Nash, like Berry Hillish area. I knew a little bit after. So I basically, in the second Airbnb, I found the house that I wanted to buy in Hendersonville, but the people needed a little bit more time because they were building a new house. So they weren't ready to move out. So they asked for a little bit extra time. And I was like, I told my realtor, like, actually fine. Because was in an Airbnb in Hendersonville at the time, this house that was way too big for me. And I thought, gosh, I want to experience downtown Nashville a little bit more before I live out in the, outskirts. So I was like, fine. So I got this spot and literally I lived those 30 days up. Mind you, I still didn't have any consistent friends. I just had known people, but I was living it up. I I have to reflect on this really quick because there's so many stories of that trip, but I remember one distinctly, and it was so cool because, obviously downtown Nashville is right there by Nissan Stadium. And I remember it was literally that day. I had the longest day at work. I'm working from home. Everything's crazy. Everything's a fire drill. And I had, in my whatever time that I looked at my phone, I saw, like, I think it was a pop-up ad on Instagram that Stevie Nicks and Billy Joel were playing at Nissan, like, that night. And I was like, you're going. That's like a bucket list. Stevie Nicks, Billy Joel, like, I have to be there. So I bought a ticket and I was like, I'm going by myself. Didn't know anybody to go with. Didn't even ask. Didn't even care. Got to see Joel and Stevie Nicks. So I go to the concert and I remember I like usually make friends everywhere I go, but I was definitely, not sitting by the crowd, like the kind of crowd that wanted this music loving, dancing, whatever, blonde, overly energetic girl to be hanging out with. They were just doing their own thing. I think they might have all been, I don't know. We'll just leave it at that. They didn't, I don't think that they were amused by my energy, so I just let them be. So, which is all right. You can't be everyone's cup of tea. So I'm there and I remember sitting there and again, the woman next to me, she's a little bit older. I want to say, and probably not, and this is not in a mean way to anyone that does this. She probably seemed like just some, the lady that would be like emailing back, like per my last email kind of lady. I don't know. So she was not feeling me. So I was like really quiet and keeping to myself. And I remember that I was sitting there and I started crying. And again, with the crying. But she looks over at me, and in that moment, like, I'm sure I just made the whole thing awkward for her, but she didn't really wanna say anything to me. So anyways, long story short, I was crying, and I realized I was crying because I was happier to be at the concert alone than I was to be there with my ex-husband. I was happier. It was like happy tears, but then I felt bad. And it was just such a time of where I thought, and the reason I'm telling this story is because I think there's a point in time in our lives if we allow ourselves to try new things that we get really okay with doing things alone. And I'm not saying we should do life alone because I do believe relationships are so important and our friends and people around us and humans are made for connections. But I think there's power in being able to do things alone. And this whole change of my life and wandering the wild mess really showed me what that actually feels like to do things in life alone. So I'm crying at the Billy Joel Stevie Nicks concert and I'm just happy. I'm reflecting on my mom allowing me to love music the way I do with just her introducing me with so many different genres growing up. And I'm just in this such a reflection. It's like you go to a concert, Heather, and you're sitting here like reflecting on your childhood and your divorce and your, welcome to my mind. So, anyways, I leave the concert. It was amazing. Like so glad I went. And and that was like one of the last, like I did so many things. It was like I probably got 4 hours of sleep between like 6, 7 a.m. meetings and working late. And then I'd go out because I lived like a 5-minute Uber from pretty much everything that was cool to do in Nashville. And it was still new to me. So this period, I didn't get a lot of sleep. So finally, we're closing on my house and me and the pup are making our way. And I just, again, am just overwhelmed. So I don't have any things, mind you, like literally no things. When I drove out here, I had what was in my little white BMW sedan, like not much. And I really just kind of didn't realize I'd have nothing until I had a home that I had nothing to put in. So we drive there, and don't get me wrong, I was so grateful. And I remember driving to my house after we closed and again in tears because par for the course, and just uh, all this gratitude of like, this is my house and I get to live here and I love it so much and I get to give my pup a backyard and this feels so calm. And I walk in and I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't even have hardly anything to put in this house. But I didn't care. And it was one of those moments where things just didn't seem very important. Like, I don't know what point in our lives, if some of us ever even get there, but I know for me, that was probably the first like time in my life where it really hit me that having all these things for whatever unnecessary things that I just had to either feel satisfied by shopping for them or being able to buy them or to keep up with the Joneses, whatever reason it is for collecting a whole bunch of things, we don't really need that much to be happy. I think we fill up the void of life and hard things with distractions that become things to do, things to take our mind off of it, things to have, things to buy, errands to run. Oh, I need more things because I need this thing and that thing. And when we really buckle down to like, do I need this? Most of the time it's no. And that's what I learned after having to fill a house with nothing. Do I need a broom? Yes. Do I need a spiral noodle maker? Probably not. Probably not. They're nice. Probably not. So that was like that moment where I'm like, I remember going to Costco and Target, probably spent a couple $100 at each, but it was like things that you would like, okay, I need toilet bowl cleaner. I need toilet paper. I did need an air fryer because that's pretty necessary. And cooking for one was something that I was doing. I knew. So I was like so excited to have an air fryer again. But for the most part, it was like I need a couple plates, a couple bowls, a couple glasses, and you just don't really need that much. And it was just really like a cool experience for me to go from like once having so much stuff to having no stuff and feeling like such at peace with that. So I remember that I didn't even have a bed. I had one chair. So they had left me like a chair in the backyard that was like a lawn chair, but it was like busted. So they're probably like, well, we're not going to do that. We'll leave her a chair. I was almost like in my head, like the peasant can have the chair. So I had one chair. I remember pouring a glass of wine and drinking it on my back porch and being like, I have one chair, but I got a glass of wine and a backyard for my dog, and life is good. And it was. And it is. And it was all because I just trusted to do a really hard thing. And I was so at peace without all the things, without being a wife, without all of the things I thought I needed. I didn't. So I think sometimes it's good to kind of like strip back on, do I need all of these things? What voids are these distractions, this noise, what are they feeling for us? Like what's missing? I think for me, choosing myself and what I wanted to do was what I was missing. I had always been so thoughtful and concerned about others. I finally was kind of coming into my own and being like, it's okay to choose me. As selfish as that sounds, you are your best self to the people that need you in your life when you know your worth and you trust yourself and you believe in who you are and your abilities to do all the things you want to do. There is nothing that you cannot be a brighter light for the people you love in your life than the light of someone who loves, respects, trusts, and believes in themselves. That is where you shine the brightest. And that is really what I got to see about myself. And as I'm preaching this, I'm not saying, "Oh, look at me. I got it all figured out and nothing was ever hard for me and I wasn't crying because we know that's not true. But it was just really like such a freeing moment to just be in this empty house and be like, I'm just figuring it out. And I think when you think about life so much, we all just like don't want to try certain things because we're not sure how they would work out. But you kind of don't need to worry about that. Just get in the situation and you'll figure it out. Here I am walking in, coming to Tennessee with a few things, hoping I'd find home, making all these memories in the first 3 months, finding the perfect place for me. So calming. It's literally my peace. And I couldn't have like written it better if I tried. Everything about it is what I needed at that time. And I swear it always presents to us that way if we just trust that it will. But that's the hard part, is like trusting that it will and not giving yourself all the excuses why it won't before you've even seen it. Because I got there and this is the crazy thing about it when I'm looking back at like what I had written in my journal or what I had been talking about on my videos to my friends, like I had no friends or family here. So I just had this big empty house and no things. And then I got this corporate job and I need a desk. I can't sit on the floor. And like I have just this like I said, this small car. I don't know anyone with the truck. I can't like buy a whole bunch of things at a store and bring them. So I'm like buying a whole bunch of stuff online that I have to build. So I bought this standing desk online and it like moved up and down so it could be a sitting and standing desk. And I was like, that's what I need because I worked so much that I couldn't sit that long. But to build that myself, hours. And it's always fun to build stuff with someone else. So there was parts of me that were like, gosh, having a partner sure would come in handy right now. But, you're not going to like pretend to care, or at least I'm not the one that can pretend to care about someone just to have something built. So I was just like, figure it out, Heather. And that was the first thing in my house that I built or assembled was the standing desk. And it was hours and hours of that. And I was so proud. And I think that's another thing that gave me even more confidence that it was all going to be okay, because I continued to have to like build things by myself and I could do it. I mean, would it take a little more time than it would have with, somebody that was better at building things or just having someone else to help? Yeah. And was it as fun by yourself? Not really. But it didn't matter. I could do it. It was a necessity. I needed at some point a kitchen table and I built that, assembled it. Sorry. I needed what is it? Why can't I think? I needed something for my bed. What is that called? You know what I'm talking about. A frame, a bed frame. And I figured out how to build one of those too. So everything worked out. And let me put it in this way. If I would have just said, I'm not going to buy a house because I don't have any tools to assemble anything when I get one. And I don't really know how to assemble all the things I need. And I don't really want to invest in getting new things. And I don't really want to, like, I don't really know. It was like I could have made a million excuses up to not do what I know I needed and wanted to do at that moment. But why? And I'm so happy that I went all in. And I remember eating that first meal in my home, and I ate it in the kitchen on the Amazon mattress box. Bought a mattress from Amazon. I know. They came a long way. And I had some Costco meal, like a sandwich and salad, and I was sitting there and I couldn't have been happier. House completely empty pretty much. Me sitting on a cardboard box. But having that first meal by myself, looking around, seeing my pup, it was like, this is me entering this whole new life. This whole new life that I am so excited to see what's next. It was kind of like reading your favorite book, or you don't know what's your favorite book while you're reading it, but reading a really good book. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the next chapter. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what happens next. It was like I had to just tell myself that that's what I was going to do. That's how I was going to live each day. I was going to wake up and be like, what are we writing today? What story is going to happen today? It just, I loved it. I still love it. I still go through times though where I get in my own head too much and I have to be like, Heather, you're writing the chapter of your day and you're not going to write, oh, I spent 3 hours worrying. And don't get me wrong, sometimes it happens. I give myself grace. I understand. But at the like highs need lows. I mean, that's how it ebbs and flows. But pulling myself out of that when I'm like, okay, that was long enough. You let your worry creep in, but it's enough. That's when you find excitement in life. You find home. And I don't think home is just a house. And I know that's cliche, but it really is like a place where you feel like you can truly be yourself around the people you're with, around yourself. Like you can feel okay being who you are. And it's just like a beautiful place to be. So I remember this is kind of going to be so I'll say that back home I hosted a lot. Like me and my ex hosted a lot of people at our house because we just liked having people over, or maybe I liked hosting, or both. And so I couldn't wait. Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, like when I have friends, I remember telling my realtor, love you, Kenzie, I would be like, okay, when I have friends, I could do this. We could sit by the fire. When I have friends, it was just such a funny thing. I never said if I make friends. I said when I make friends, when I have friends, because I knew I would. And I think too, sometimes we have to just, okay, maybe we don't have it now, but we will. We will again. And I mean, I had friends back home, but I mean, I didn't know. I mean, everyone's life is so busy, and I've already said they're married with kids. And so it's not like super convenient to come out and visit a friend all the time. I get it. And so just me being excited and thinking forward about like when I have friends, but still being just happy to have this home myself. So there's a night that it's probably a couple of weeks after I buy my house, and I'm at this restaurant up the street called Moby Dickie's. Really good. If you're ever out in Hendersonville, it's a spot. And I'm just sitting at the bar, and I had kind of tried to explore like a little bit of Hendersonville, but I've been to like not that many places because I definitely love to cook. But I went there and I was sitting at the bar, and there was this couple, and he lived here. He was in the military, and she had just moved. They met in San Diego or somewhere in California, and then he finally convinced her to move to where he was. And so they were, uh, talking about eventually getting married kind of thing. So we're in the total different boats at this point. Like I had just, getting divorced and leaving where I lived. She's moving somewhere to potentially marry this guy. But so it was good. We were just talking and talking. And next thing you know, I was like, I have a house. You guys want to come over and have a drink? Because I'd like never had people in my house. And they're like, sure, yeah. They lived like really close to me. So I was like, okay. So they come over to my house, and I have some tequila and whiskey and all the things. And so we're just talking about life and all these things. And the next thing you know, the girl's like, she's ready to roll. I'm learning that they both have some probably issues in the relationship they needed to talk about. And somehow I end up being a lot, oftentimes a little bit of a coach for people. So I'm trying to console her while he steps out of the room and makes a phone call. I don't know. Next thing you know, this girl just gets hammered and she's taking shots. I turn around and I had just bought, there was like these black appliances that didn't match in my house. And after I just talked to y'all about things don't really matter, there was still a part of me that was like, I need my appliances to match and I don't want them to be black because it doesn't really go with the aesthetic. So I had, but then they were old too. So I bought new appliances. I know. You have to pick the things. Well, anyways, this really sweet, cute girl, I turn around and she puked all over the front of my new fridge. And I was like, what is happening? So her boyfriend walks in and he's like, what are you doing? And like, kind of mad at her. Like, and I'm like, I don't even care. Like, we can clean it, you know? And so that was like awkward for me. And so the next thing you know, they didn't stay very long. Great to meet y'all. Blah, 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 blah. They decided to leave. And, weirdly, as I'm cleaning up this random girl's puke off my brand new fridge, I'm kind of like, well, I broke in the house. I've had people over now. This is what it's like. I have no idea. It's going to be a whole new adventure. Like, it was like, these people are forever going to be the first people in my house that I invited over. So, yeah, I wrote that chapter. And I think like I realized I didn't have any anger about anything anymore. Like I mean, why would I be mad at this poor girl? I have no idea what was going on in her life, but I can tell you that nothing was broken and nothing couldn't not be cleaned. And I think again, these are just things that are happening in my life and it's like showing me life's not that serious. Who even cares? So this girl puked on your fridge. It's fine. And at least you had people over. So, anyways, I don't know really where I'm going with that one, and no one probably wants to hear 2 more minutes of that kind of story, but I'm just trying to give that positive spin as like starting over is sometimes messy. You might have to clean up some random girl's puke. I mean, unsuspectingly, if she takes a turn, but it'll be fine and it'll be a story and life will move on. And she had texted me the next day and she was so embarrassed. And I was like, girl, don't even worry about it. And I think sometimes we don't we think that people are going to be mad about the silliest things. And I just never wanted to really be mad about silly things anymore. I had a cute home. I had people that got to come see it. Whether we were going to be lifelong friends, probably not. But still, I got to have 2 other humans in my house. And it was fun for me. So I'll leave you with this as I wrap this up and tell you about how grateful I was to just start over in this new house with no things. The song I started with, Parker McCollum and Diplo, Lonely Long. There's a line that says, and I listened to this song when I was feeling like, am I going to be lonely? Which I think it's okay to be lonely. But there's a lyric that says, the world's your home, so welcome home. That is so beautiful to me because the world is our home. We all have a home. We just have to love ourselves enough to go, I'm home where I'm happy and find what makes us happy and go do that. The last thing I'll leave you with is Young Pueblo. I'm a big fan. And this is exactly what it felt like. After the cocoon period, when you're in full bloom, take advantage of this powerful energy. Create what your intuition is asking you to. Stay open to new connections. Make the moves that will change your life. Do the hard things your capacity can handle. Live adventurously. I hope that you can do that. Each day is an opportunity to write a new page in your book of life. Go make a really good one. Thanks for listening to Wandering the Wild Mess with Heather Morgan. You matter.